Okay, so let's get started with the project. If you can see here on the screen, it's got installation steps following this URL on the Next.js docs. First of all, what I want to do though is create a new repository in my GitHub. So the project is going to be called Next13 WhatsApp-YT for a YouTube project. I'm going to keep it as public and then just create the repository here. So now I've got the link here that I want to clone onto my local machine. So if I go into my terminal, here, I just want to type in git clone and paste in that URL that we have created for the new repository. And if you press enter there, then I want to see the folder structure. So you type in ls here, and then you can see all of my builds in here. I want to navigate to this one, which is Next13 WhatsApp. So all I want to do is cd and Next13 WhatsApp-YT, like so. And then all I want to do is code space dot, and then this will open up VS Code for me here. So now you can see Next13 WhatsApp YT. So what I can do now is expand this. So now if I open the terminal in here, what I now want to do is go back into the Next.js docs and then copy this link here. And if you go back and paste that in the terminal, so now this will start creating the Next.js project. I'm just going to call this my app, but we will just move it into this folder that we have just created. We want to use TypeScript, so we press enter, and ESLint, so press enter. We are going to be using Tailwind, so we are going to press enter there. And would you like a source directory? We are not going to have that in this project. And we are using the app router, so it's Next.js 13. And then I'm just going to press no again. So essentially what I've done is followed the recommended steps from Next.js, and then that is all installing in here now. What I also want to do is open a new terminal and type in node-v and press enter. So at the minute, I'm using Node version 14.19. So we want to change that. So the way to change that is using a package called NVM, which you need to download and install. I already have it installed in my project. So what I'm going to do is type in mvm use, and the version I'm going to use is 18.12.1. So I'm going to press enter, and that will change the version for me. If we just check the version again this time, you can see now I'm using 18.12.1. This is important because we need that in our Next.js 13 project. As you can see here, it says 16.8 or later. So I'm using the 18 version. So if we go back, we're going to delete this terminal now. And then this is installing everything in my app, as you can see there. So we just need to wait for it to complete. So now that's everything complete. What I want to do is I want to take everything out of my app. So if I click here and then press shift and click again, I can just move everything out of here. And then I can just delete the my app folder. So let's delete that. So essentially the project will fall in the Next13 WhatsApp YT. So if we navigate through this, there's a few differences in Next.js 13 as opposed to Next.js 12. So if we expand the app directory, we have a few files in here. We have the global CSS, which imports all of the Tailwind styles because we are using that. So we don't really need to mess with this one. We have a layout.tsx in here. So this is the root layout component. What this essentially does is it has HTML here, and then it also has a body tag here with the class name of inter.classname, which essentially is importing the relevant font. So this is how you would import a font from Next.js. There's a little difference here as well, which is the metadata, which is the site metadata. So because this layout is across, what you could do is instead of create next app, we want to change this to WhatsApp clone with Next.js 13. And then everything essentially in here is a wrapper to the rest of the application. So that's why we bring in children as props, which then renders out the children. So essentially the rest of the app in here. So that will be the home page. We will have a chat page and also a login page. So going on to the home page, this is the page here. We have our default boilerplate code in here, but what I want to do is close this down. We don't need the divs that are the imported ones from Next13. So let's delete everything that we don't need. So now that everything is deleted, I also want to, first of all, delete the class name in here because we want to change this, and I'm going to leave it as it is now for now. And in here, I'm just going to type in a H1 saying WhatsApp clone. So now if I save that, what I want to do is we've now checked the layout, which is the wrapper around the app. We've now got the page, which is the slash route on the app, which is essentially the home page. So now if I go into my terminal, I first of all want to check if it is installed. So I'm just going to use yarn in this build. So if we delete the package lock here, and then I'm just going to type in yarn, which will install the relevant dependencies and create a yarn lock file for me. Okay, so now that I have my yarn lock file here, what I want to do now is do yarn run dev to run the application. And essentially we should see everything working with a H1 of WhatsApp clone. So if I go into my browser onto localhost here, you can see here it says WhatsApp clone. So we need to fix the styling and so on. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, in the WhatsApp menu, what we have is a sidebar on the left and we have a main screen. So essentially I'm going to have two columns. The first column is going to be a chat sidebar, and then the second column is going to be the main screen. So that will show the chat, but on the home page, we will just have an image being rendered. So what we first of all need is a display of flex. So in Tailwind, it is flex, like so. And then we want to do a height of the screen. So take up the entire screen. So essentially height of 100 VH. And then what we also want to do is have a whole overflow of hidden. So that is the first style there complete. We then want two divs. So in the first div, we want to render a chat sidebar. So let's just keep that as it is for now. And then the second div, we want to have a main chat like so. So if we save, we can see now we have a chat sidebar, and then straight after we have a chat. So we need to style that as well. So first div is going to be a class name, and in here we are going to have a background of white, so bg white of 500, which is essentially the shade of the white that we want. You could go up to, I think it's 700 or maybe 900, but you can check in the Tailwind docs. This column is going to have a width of a third of the screen, so 1/3. Essentially that means take up a third of the screen on the left, and then everything else will be the chat on the right. And then we also want a overflow Y of auto. So this vertical axis will be scrollable for all our chats if there are any other chats that we need to see and it's overflowing. So now if I save that and go into here, you can see now it's taking up a third of the screen there. And we also need to do the same for the chat. So let's style the chat now. So class name, and this time the chat will be a width of full, meaning take up the rest of the space. Again, this is going to have an overflow Y of auto as well. This is going to be a display of flex. We are going to have the justify items as center. So I'll align items of center in normal CSS. I'll justify content of center, which is justify center in Tailwind. And then this one is going to be a background of blue, and this shade is going to be 50, so just a light blue. So now if I save, you can see it coming together. You can see the difference between the two. Now we have this column, which is the sidebar, and then this is the main chat screen here. So what I now want to do is bring in the image that we will be rendering. So let me just bring that in, which is essentially the WhatsApp background. So if I put that in public just there, so this is going to be rendered onto the home screen when we are on the home page, but when we get into a chat page, then this will disappear and then we will have the individual chat being rendered. So back onto the page here, what I'm going to do is render a next image, which is coming from NextJS, and this is an image tag I've talked about in my other builds in here. So essentially the source is going to be the WhatsApp PNG that we have. So I'm going to import this in first of all. So import, and I'm going to call this background image from /public of WhatsApp background PNG, like so. I'm going to give this some alt text also, and then the width and the height I'm going to change to 1000. Now if I save and check the browser, you can see here there's an error saying background image not found, and that's because the name is whatsapp-bg.png. So let's rename that. And now, as you can see here, the background is showing up onto the page like so. What I'm going to do as well is max this image out so it's quite large, so it covers the entire screen, as you can see, like so there. So that's the main screen done. We just need to start creating the sidebar. So what I'm going to do first of all is create the folder structure for the project. We first of all have the app folder in here, and we have the public. If I click onto the package JSON level, I'm going to create a new folder in here called modules, and I'm also going to create a new folder called components. So these are at the top level of the application. I'm also going to create a lib folder. So this is when we will integrate Firebase and any other third-party applications. They will go in the lib folder. That is everything now complete. What I first want to do is create a module. So in here, I'm going to create a new component called chat sidebar.tsx. And I'm going to do RAFCE like that and press tab, which is coming from React functional snippets. And this is going to be react.fc as a TypeScript functional component. And then in here, we're just going to say h1, this is the sidebar. So now in my div up here, I'm going to render the chat sidebar component. So now if I save all, you can see that component is being rendered. So what we need to do is start creating that component. So in the chat sidebar component, we have a div first of all. So we need to style that. It's just going to be a width of full and a height of full, which means take up all the space that it can do. So that's that first part done. On WhatsApp, what we need to do is map out the things that we need. So we need a header at the top. We also need a search. We also want the archived, and we finally need the chat. So that's everything we need. The first component I'm going to build is the header. So I'm going to call this one sidebar header, because we will have a main screen header as well. So let's create this component. So in the folder for components, you can create a new folder in here. So this one is going to be called sidebar. So all the components for sidebar in here. And then I'm going to create a folder in here as well called sidebar header. And then in sidebar header, I'm going to create a index.tsx file in here. So if we create a functional component, so RAFCE, so again, instead of index, this time it's going to be called sidebar header. And this will be a react.fc for our type. And in here, I'm just going to render sidebar header like so. So now if I save, what I want to do is import this on our chat sidebar module. So that's imported in here. So as you have noticed, this is just a normal functional component as you would do in any Next.js project or React project. But what is happening is by default, this is a server component. So what we want to do in this component is import a module for Material UI so we can access its icons, but that is done on the client side. So let's first of all open our terminal, and then we want to install Material UI. So let's install that. So if we close our project down for now and then go into our browser and go into Material UI. So this is what we need for our project, for our icons. So if we go back in here, and instead of npm install, it is going to be yarn add Material UI and all its dependencies. So that's that part sorted. And in the search, I want to also look for the icons. So Material icons in here. We need to copy this as well because we want to install the icons. And again, yarn add and paste in the icons, but instead we don't want the npm install. So that is Material UI installed now. So what I want to do is give the class name for this div, and I'll explain it. So it's a display of flex, item, center, and justify content evenly. It's got a padding on the x-axis of the padding left and right of 0.5 rems, so px of 2, padding on the y-axis of 1 rem. It has a height of 5 rem, so h20, a border right on the sidebar here, which is also a gray of 200, and also a border bottom of gray of 200 as well. And then it finally has a Z index of 10. So that means that the Z index of the header will always be on top. So when we scroll the chats on the left hand side, the header will always be remaining. So if we save this and go into our application, nothing as of yet has changed because we need to import the sidebar header. So now if I save all, and then we can restart our app. So yarn run dev once again. And now you can see here that the sidebar header is now showing. We now need to insert the relevant icons. So they will be done from Material UI. So going back into our code, first of all, what I want to do is import the account circle icon from Material UI, which will be in its own standalone div. So again, let's create a div. And we want to import the account circle icon from Material UI, which is basically the icon for a person. And then if I save, what will happen is there will be an error that occurs. And if we go into here, as you can see here, create context only works in client components. add the use client directive at the top of the file to use it. So essentially, because Next.js is server components first, what we need to do is whenever we use something to do with React, so a hook, so a use state hook or any sort of hook, we will need to import the use client directive at the top. So let's go ahead and do that right at the top of the page here. So essentially what this does is tells this Next.js app that this component in particular will be using the client side code. So Material UI imports or client side. So now if I save and go back in here, what will happen is now we have the icon imported. So now the app is working correctly. So the approach is server first, and then after that it will be the client, unless we direct it to say use client, then it would use the client. So now we have the account circle icon here imported. What I want to do is give this a class name because we want padding on the left this time. So class name and padding left of 2, which is PL, like so. So now if I save, you can see here padding left of 0.5 rem in here. Next off, what I want to do is have a few icons being imported in here like so. And the icons are going to be a group outlined icon, a data usage icon, a chat outlined icon, and that's everything here. So we just need to import this from Material UI. So again, let's go in and import the relevant ones at the top. Now everything is here. So if I now save and go into my browser, you can see now we have 4 icons in here, and when we click on them, that is the icon button showing the ripple effect as well.